All right, my man. State your name and let them know you on Nickavelli TV.
Yes, Pete. My name is Pete. I'm a big Nickavelli TV.
All right.
Exactly.
So you're a Knicks fan.
Yes.
How long you been a Knicks fan?
Let's say since like 1972.
1972. That's the year I was born, man. Damn.
Championship years.
Damn.
70 and 73.
I was just coming out the sack, man.
Yes, yes.
All right. Let's get into it, man. Who's your favorite player?
Let's say all time, probably Earl Monroe. Earl Monroe. Because I have a special affinity for Earl the Pearl Monroe.
Yeah? What you liked about Earl Monroe game, man?
Well, one of the reasons I loved his creativity. He was kind of the first one that did the spin move around the back, through the legs. So he was one of the innovators of that. He also lived in my neighborhood. He lived on 88th Street on the Upper West Side, so that drew me to him as well. I used to wait outside his brownstone on 88th Street between Columbus and Amsterdam. So
oh, really?
My favorite players is used in my neighborhood.
Well, you know, right now he's on 116.
Right, exactly.
We did the New Jack City building?
Right.
The movie?
Right. Yeah, but he used to live on 88th between Columbus and Amsterdam.
Okay. Now, do you remember the wars that took place between Earl the Pearl and Clyde?
Oh, absolutely. Earl, before they were
on the same team,
teammates, Earl the Pearl was on the Bullets, and they had incredible matchups. That was a rivalry. The Bullets and the Knicks. They would go at it. Earl and Clyde, and that was some rivalry between the Bullets and the Knicks.
Who you think got the best of who?
You know what? They had very different games. Walt Frazier was more of a fundamental player, not as much flash as Earl the Pearl, but they both got it done in their own separate way. But probably, about even up, I'm going to say, but very different styles.
Yeah?
They're very different styles.
Now, some say Kyrie Irving got his moves from Earl the Pearl. Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. You know, the players from the 70s paved the way. Especially Earl Monroe, maybe Dr. J, Connie Hawkins, some of the creative players, and a lot of the players today have seen tapes. I know they watch YouTube and see tapes of them, and that's how they form their game. Absolutely.
Okay. Now, I'm going to name some other players, man. Since you're talking about the championship names. Was you a fan of Phil Jackson?
Yes, I was. I liked Phil Jackson. They called him Action Jackson at the time. He had long arms, a long, wingspan, and they always brought. One thing I remember about Phil Jackson, they always brought him in to guard the inbounds pass, because he had a long wingspan, wide arms. So he would go in and kind of disrupt the inbounds pass. That's what I always remember Phil Jackson for.
So he was more like a Bill Lambert type of player?
Yeah, I'm gonna say he was more of a defensive stopper. He was not a scorer by any stretch of the imagination, but he did the little things. Guarded a lot of their players, hustled, got rebounds, kicked it out to the open guards from outside. But he did all the little things. But I would not call him he was more of a grinder and a defensive player and a rebounder.
Okay, now would it surprise you to see how his career turned out as a coach? If you was to look back at him as a player coming in the league, did you expect him to turn out to be a successful coach like he was?
Yeah, I don't think anyone expected him to be that successful, but he had all the qualities when he was when he was with the Knicks. He was very cerebral. He followed in Red Holzman's footsteps. He always was kind of at the hip with Red Holzman. Always wanted to know why they were doing things, the reason they were setting up certain defenses. So I guess not to the extent, the level of success he had, but he was kind of grooming himself to be an NBA coach for a long time. And he started out, in the CBA with the Albany Patroons. I remember seeing him starting off with the Albany Patroons, then he got a shot as an assistant coach with the Bulls with Doug Collins, and then he got his opportunity, and he made the most of it. But I always remember him starting out with the Albany Patroons.
Albany Patroons.
Correct.
Okay. You throwing out a lot of Jews out here, man. Yeah. You just got into it. You also had Bernard King back in the day.
Absolutely. Bernard King was one of the best scorers in the NBA. He was unstoppable for a couple seasons. he went up that left side of the court, and you could not stop him. He just pulled up with that jump shot, and he was unstoppable for a while. He almost led the Knicks to a championship. Didn't quite get there back in '84. I think they went to a 7-game series against the eventual champion, against the Celtics. But he gave it all he could, and he was a great NBA player for a bunch of years.
Do you think the Knicks did him dirty by letting him go?
No, well, you know what? It was kind of I understood the reason. The Knicks at the time, Patrick Ewing was just starting out his career. They wanted to pave the way for Patrick and to get his to be the main man on the Knicks. And Bernard King obviously went through many knee injuries. So I think it was time, a kind of a mutual decision that Bernard wanted to go, and they also wanted to kind of create more opportunities for Patrick when he came. If I recall, him and Patrick only played a full, half a season together back in 86, 87, and then Bernard was dealt to the Bullets.
Okay, all right. Moving right along, man. We also had great players like Dick Barnett.
Dick Barnett, by the way, was one of the unsung heroes of the Knicks championship teams. They call him fallback. You know, he had his little kickback to his left. He was a left-handed, a very good shooter. He was kind of at the end of his career with the Knicks championship teams, but he was a vital part of the Knicks championship teams from 1970 and 73. A very cerebral player again. He's up on the banners. His numbers retired just like all the other players from the Knicks championship team. Well deserved, but a very bright individual. He went to Tennessee State. He also went on to earn a doctorate degree over, I believe, at Fordham University. So a good man and an integral part of those championship teams for the Knicks.
Wow. And what college did he go to?
I believe he went to Tennessee State. Tennessee State, the same college actually as Nick later on was Chuck Robinson, but I believe Dick Barnett went to Tennessee State.
Okay. Clyde Frazier.
Clyde Frazier, one of the best players in the NBA, a key member of the Knicks. He went to college at Southern Illinois. Knicks drafted him first. There was a lot to be expected of Clyde when he came in to the league in 1967, but he blossomed, he grew, a very cerebral player, fundamentally sound, a great defensive player. He played two ways. He was not only interested in scoring, but he played the other side, played defense very well, very calm, got everyone involved, and obviously his breakout game was that Game 7 of the 1970 championship season against the Lakers, where I believe he scored 36 points, 13 assists, and I think 7 rebounds. So
now, I have a question about that particular game.
Yeah.
Because he had an awesome game. Right. When I go in the archives, I was too young to witness it myself.
Right.
But I understand they gave the MVP to no other than Willis Reed, who came out limping. And I always ask the OGs, like yourself, Willis Reed scored nothing but 4 points.
Right.
Why did he get the MVP and not Clyde?
You know what? A good question. I don't know. Clyde definitely deserved. I mean, he had that incredible game. Willis Reed was more maybe the sentimental pick because he got injured in that game number 5 with that knee, that thigh injury. Maybe more of a sentimental choice back then. Obviously it wasn't talked about. There's not as much media back then, but I agree. I believe Clyde should have definitely deserved that MVP of that championship series.
Now, I'm playing devil advocate. I kind of know the answer to that question, because someone would say that Willis Reed did everything to get them there. And that he was the motivator.
Right.
You know, but everybody got their own different perspective, but you would think for someone like Clyde to have a game like that.
You would think. Yeah, you would think. I mean, he had obviously one of the most incredible games in the history of the NBA for a Game 7 to come to the champions. The other person that comes to mind right away that had that type of game, the only person I could think of, is the 1980 Finals, that game, 1980 NBA Finals with Magic. playing center for the Los Angeles Lakers. That's the only game I could think of that a player dominated that much in a clinching championship game.
Wow. You know your shit, man. You know your shit. We gonna move on to 90s, man. Marbury.
Stephon Marbury, one of the most talented players and explosive players I've ever seen. Coming out of Georgia Tech, well, obviously he's Brooklyn born, but coming out of Georgia Tech, he left early. A lot of people thought maybe he should stay in, but he was an explosive point guard. Rather compact. I think he went about 6'1", 6'2", but could explode off the dribble. A very good player in his own right. When he started off, I believe, with the Phoenix Suns, and then he went on to the New Jersey Nets. Had a kind of a tumultuous career, but he was one of the most talented point guards in the NBA of his time. He really was.
Yeah? Would you say his point guard skills was up there with no other than Mark Jackson? Or am I reaching?
Yeah, you know what? Two different players. Stephon Marbury obviously was much smaller than Mark Jackson, much more explosive, much quicker, a better scorer than Mark Jackson. But I would compare him more to, I'm trying to think of another player in Stephon Marbury's that's today, probably Kyrie Irving, somewhat of a Kyrie Irving before his time, but
okay.
A smaller player, more of a scorer.
Now, my man, John Starks.
John Starks was one of the most, I'm trying to think, he worked for everything he got. He started off, at a small
packing
school.
bags, man.
What's that?
He was packing bags too.
Yes. He packed groceries over in Oklahoma. He's from Tulsa, Oklahoma. He went to a small junior college, but then went on to Oklahoma State. He got some looks, and the Knicks drafted right. He was an explosive player, very streaky, but when he got on his roll, he was unstoppable. He was, I wouldn't say a pure shooter, but a streaky shooter, and when he was on, he was on. And he had so much energy that he really was infectious throughout the whole team. He really made the other players.
Do you like his defensive game?
What's that?
His defense.
His defense was very good.
Because Michael Jordan gave him props.
Yes. Michael Jordan, I think he said one of the best defensive players that played against him was John Starks.
Right.
He always got in your face, always gave 100% energy. So that was one of the qualities of John Starks, absolutely.
Okay, now, where was you when he did the 3 for 18?
3 for 18, I'll remember that. I always remember that game. That was that game number 7 against the Houston Rockets. But you know what? One thing that you got to give John Starks credit for with that 3 for 18, a lot of guys would shut it down after they go 2 for 7. You know what? He kept on it. He had confidence in himself, maybe to the detriment overall, but you know what? He had confidence. He was going to keep going at it. He was not going to let that stop him, a few misses. He was going to keep going at it, so I applaud him for that.
Okay, but do you think Pat Riley get the blame for not pulling him out and bringing in no other than Orlando Blackman?
Yeah, no.
Orlando Blackman was on the bench.
He was, but you know what? Sometimes they talk about you dance with the girl that you brought to the dance. You dance with the girl that brought you to the dance. He was riding John Starks the whole year. He had a great year that year. So I understand where Pat Riley was coming from. I understand Orlando Blackman was on the bench, but he rode his horse and he stuck with them, through thick and thin.
Okay. Now, Patrick Ewing. Oh, before we get to Pat, just like I mentioned, John Starks 3 for 18. Where were you when the dunk took place?
Oh, I'll tell you right now, that dunk, I believe that was May of 1993. And it was against the Chicago Bulls. Knicks already won game number 1. This was game number 2, as the closing minutes of game number 2. And Patrick Ewing set that pick for him. He went the other way on the pick, and all of a sudden he came down, being a right-hander, he came down, switched the ball to his left hand, and threw it down on 6'10" Horace Grant and 6'6" Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan came in a little bit late, but that was the best play they talk about in Knicks history. The roof, the ceiling at the Garden almost exploded. It got so loud at the Garden.
Now, what you say to those who would swear down that Michael Jordan wasn't there and whatnot?
You know what? Being a Knicks fan, you always want Jordan, right underneath there, get dunked on. But I got to be honest, Michael Jordan kind of came late to that play. He was in the picture, he was in that poster, but I wouldn't say he really was posterized. He came late to that play. It was really Horace Grant who really was dunked on. That's the person who was really dunked on.
All right, okay. All right, now, Xavier McDaniels, the X-Man.
The X-Man, he from Wichita State, he brought a fierceness. He was an intimidating player. A lot of players.
Scottie Pippen in general.
Yes, he tried to intimidate players, and you know what? X-Man did a good job on that. He would throw it down. He was not afraid of contact. Absolutely, he came to play every night. Brought his hard hat, and he was a major cog in those Knicks teams of the '90s, of the early '90s. Absolutely, X-Man was a very good skill player, but a fierce competitor. That's what I remember about him.
And how do you feel about no other than the Oak Tree?
Oakman. I like Oakman. Oakman gave it his all. He was obviously a great rebounder. He was on the Bulls, and the Bulls decided to go a different direction. He made, they made that trade for Bill Cartwright, one-on-one for Charles Oakley.
And what college he went to?
Charles Oakley went to Virginia Union, as a matter of fact.
All right, I'm trying to catch you out there, but you want it with these college, the players and where they went from.
He went to Virginia Union. Bill Cartwright actually went to the University of San Francisco, but they got traded for each other. It was a trade that worked out for both teams. The Bulls won 3 championships with Bill Cartwright, but they said no one will ever win a championship with Bill Cartwright as a center. They did. And the Knicks were very competitive, almost won championships with Charles Oakley. So that was a trade that kind of worked out for both teams.
Now, how did it make you feel the way Charles Oakley was exiled out of Madison Square Garden, man? Concerning him and James Dolan.
Right. I don't know too much of what went down, but it was kind of an unfortunate incident. I don't know the particulars on it, so I'm not going to get into that. But I don't know the particulars on it.
Well, it was based on him expressing his thoughts on where the organization is going. James Dolan ain't like it.
Right.
He said he was being followed when he go in Madison Square Garden bathroom.
Right.
That security be around him, and it was very unfortunate. Man.
Yes, absolutely, an unfortunate incident. Hopefully, they'll patch things up and go forward from there.
Okay, now we're gonna get a little bit to the 2000s. My man Carmelo Anthony. Right now, he can't find a home or a team, shall I say, to play for. You think Melo should hang it up? Or do you think he should try to make his way back to the New York Knicks, if possible?
Right. You know what? I think.
And by the way, what college Melo came from?
Melo obviously went to SU. He went to Syracuse, the Orangemen.
Okay.
Yeah, he had obviously a great career. Won the national championship in his freshman year. Basically put Syracuse on his back that year, and they won the national championship his freshman year. His only year he was in college. So that was an amazing feat back in 2003. Melo right now, I'm never to say to someone that they should retire. He's got to do what he's got to do, get back in shape. But there might be a team for him. I don't know if it's the New York Knicks. I think that water's under the bridge. I think both player and the team is probably wants to move on. But he might find a niche with a particular team. I don't know.
Was you in love with his game? Some say he was a ball hog.
Right.
I mean, what's your perspective?
Yeah, I always thought Carmelo Anthony was obviously a skilled offensive player. Not the two-way player that probably vaulted him, maybe that could have vaulted him into another level. But he was an amazing scorer. I think he could have worked a little bit harder on the defensive end, and that would have put him in another level of a player. But he was a great scorer in the NBA.
Now, before Carmelo Anthony came to the Knicks, we had Amari Stoudemire. I was hoping that them two players was going to be able to play besides each other. Didn't happen. Do you think they was able to coexist, or you think that wasn't a good chemistry to jump?
Yeah, you know what? Not a great fit for both players. You know, basketball is a sport where you need that chemistry more than any other sport, because you only have 5 players on the court. Each player has to mesh. Some of the weaknesses could be some of the strengths of another person. So both players kind of like to get down low. Both players needed the ball to kind of function. So it probably was not a great fit, the optimal fit for both players.
Okay. Now we're going to talk about players today. Are you familiar with Mitchell Robinson?
Mitchell Robinson, a little bit. I know that he's a great rebounder, a great shot blocker. He plays hard all the time, 100%. I think there's a big upside for Mitchell Robinson. You need those players, by the way, that have that amazing amount of energy, that want to play defense, that want to defend, and everything else is gravy. And that's the kind of thing I think of Mitchell Robinson, that his main focus is to defend, to rebound, and everything else kind of flows off of that. And you need those players. It's very important in the NBA, in today's NBA.
Okay. And I call him the Snake because I don't like what he did, how he did the Knicks. No other than Chris Porzingis. He wanted the $10 million extension contract after he got hurt dunking on the Greek Freak. Knicks didn't give it to him, which I'm happy. I guess the Knicks is learning not to pay, or shall I say, dish out all this money until we find out how you're going to come back from a torn ACL. Do you think the Knicks made the right decision?
You know what? That's a hard thing to kind of comprehend. I don't know. Again, I don't know the particulars about the injury and letting him go. Obviously, with a player like that with such upside, you need to have patience and kind of stick with a player. Again, the doctors know better than myself. I'm never going to say I'm a doctor. I don't know exactly how bad the injury was. I do know that 7-footers, generally speaking, it's not natural to be a 7-footer. So when you get an injury from a 7-footer, they're usually chronic. They usually, over time, they get worse.
Right.
So that's kind of a separate injury when it's a big man, when it's a 7-footer.
Okay.
So I don't know. I don't want to comment because I don't know the extent of the injury.
Was you in love with his game?
You know what? I liked his game. I'm not going to say I was in love with his game. I thought he was a very good skill player. I think, again, he probably could put more effort on the defensive end. He was not the defensive stopper that I would like to see from a franchise player like him. So, obviously a skilled offensive player, but I really believe you need to be a two-way player if you're going to be a franchise player, a cornerstone for a team.
Okay. Now, I'm going to further talk about Chris Porzingis. When he got traded, he wanted to walk, so we traded him to Dallas. We took some players along the way. We lost Trey Burke, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Courtney Lee.
Right.
Was you a fan of any of them players that had to go during the trade deal?
You know what?
Starting with Trey Burke.
Trey Burke. I like Trey Burke. He was a very good skilled player, but again, limited in his size. I mean, he was an amazing skilled player, but his size would probably be a detriment in terms of defending other point guards. It's very, very hard to have a guy now that's about, I believe he's about 6 feet, 6'1", and he was a very skilled player, but you need also to defend.
Right.
And I don't know if he was going to be able to defend other point guards or other guards.
Wow. And Frank Ntilikina?
Frank Ntilikina, I think.
He catch a lot of slack in New York.
Right.
I call him Officer Frankie.
Right.
Because he's good locking down.
Yes.
But his offense, averages 5 points per game.
Right.
Talk to me.
There's a lot expected of him. Obviously, he's a little bit of a disappointment. And obviously, there's going to be a lot of baggage when you're a foreign player. A lot of people don't see him growing up. So this is going to be a make or break year for him. We're going to see what he does. But he's definitely have to produce, and he has to produce a lot this year for the Knicks to kind of make him kind of extend his contract.
Yeah, because we could have got Dennis Smith Jr. at the time during the draft. He's on the Knicks now.
Right.
And by the way, where Frank Ntilikina come from? What college?
Frank Ntilikina did not go to college in the United States. He's from France.
I was trying to catch you. Yeah. Dennis Smith Jr.
Dennis Smith Jr.
You know about Dennis Smith Jr.?
Not too much. More of the current players, I don't know too much about Dennis Smith Jr. I know he's a skilled player, an offensive player. I think, and I'm not sure, but I think he went to Georgia Tech, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But a good player, and hopefully he'll blossom.
All right, now I'm going to get to the meat, and we're going to close out.
Yeah.
During the draft, free agency, we didn't get players that we was hoping to get. The double Ks, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant. They went to the Brooklyn Nets, man. I call the Brooklyn Nets second-class citizen. I'm a big Knicks fan. I think, in my opinion, that they were scared of the Broadway show. Going to Brooklyn is off Broadway, man. New York, it consists of New York Knicks fans. There's more Knicks fans in New York than there are Net fans, man.
Right.
My question to you, do you think the Knicks made a mistake not signing Kevin Durant?
Well, again, I don't know the particulars. I'm sure they went out and got their feelers and tried to sign. I think what maybe hurt the Knicks is the younger players of today don't understand the history of the Knicks and the importance of playing in New York. Again, Kevin Durant grew up in Maryland. Kyrie Irving is from the metropolitan area from Jersey, but I don't think they understand the importance or the history of the Knicks. Younger players today, that's not what they're concerned with. They don't even know about the Knicks' history and their past. So that's one of the things maybe that they didn't understand. Because if you know the history of New York City, you know New York City and New York Knicks are the mecca of basketball. If you want to do it, this is where you want to do it, to turn this franchise around. So I don't think that Kevin Durant understood kind of the enormity, the history of New York City and the New York Knicks.
Okay, now Kevin Durant, by the way, do you know what college he went to?
Oh, he went to the University of Texas.
Okay.
University of Texas.
All right. Now, Kevin Durant suffers from a torn Achilles.
Right.
That injury is way more detrimental than a torn ACL.
Right.
Do you think he'll be able to recover from that?
Good question. Not
to mention that he's trying to come back this season to play.
Right. Only time will tell. It's hard to say. Kevin Durant is probably the most skilled player in the NBA. Now, you could look at it two ways, that since he's the most skilled player, he's got a lot to do to get back to that level, or you could look at it as he's such a skilled player that he can overcome that injury. I don't know. If I would think that Kevin Durant, because he's such a skilled player and he's so determined, that I think he'll make it back, and I think he'll be the player that he once was.
Okay, you familiar with Kevin Knox?
Not too much, a little bit. I know that he had a good rookie season, kind of an up and down rookie season, had some flashes.
You know what college he came from?
I believe Kevin Knox went to University of Kentucky.
Okay.
Yeah.
Damn, you good, man. Yeah. Good.
Yeah. But, we're looking for big things from Kevin Knox. Again, like I said, he had some flashes last year, kind of up and down, but kind of ended the season pretty good. He knew he was the man, so look for bigger and bigger things from Kevin Knox this year.
All right, and this is it, man. We'll put the nail in the coffin. We didn't get Zion Williams. We was tanking, I believe. Knicks won no more than 17 wins last season, 35 losses, something like, or 68 losses, something like that. Do you think R.J. Barrett, the number 3 draft pick, is the man that we should pick? Well, we got him, so we do have him. But do you think he's just as good as Zion Williams?
You know, again, only time will tell. I didn't get to see him too much.
And by the way, R.J. Barrett want to dunk on Chris Porzingis. That's his goal. You want to posterize Chris Porzingis.
Right. Hey, I like that attitude. I like him going after Kristaps. But again, R.J. Barrett has a lot of talent. Obviously, Zion Williams was kind of everyone's consensus #1 picked. But you know what? Sometimes these things work out where maybe R.J. Barrett now has that little bit of chip on his shoulder and wants to prove everyone wrong. And he's got a lot of talent, so hopefully things will work out. He'll get a team around him because obviously he's a very, very skilled player. And obviously things have to go right, but I believe in R.J. Barrett, and I think he will get the Knicks back to respectability, I believe.
All right, and we're going to close the curtain on our promise. This is it. Zion Williams. Some say he's too big for the kind of style of game he has, dunking and whatnot. You agree with that?
It's a good question. Again,
like, cause you saw what happened to Larry Johnson, right?
Right.
He had all that weight.
Right.
Big players like Larry Johnson, Charles
They wear down.
Barkley. Yes.
They wear down. Yes, and again, it all depends on the player. A lot of people always said that Reggie Miller was too thin, that he had to put on weight. But it all really depends upon the player. I don't think there's a specific body type for the NBA. There are players that are thin, that have become, that are great NBA players, and players that are thick and build their body up. So the body type is not important as to the drive. So I'm not as concerned with the body type. I really believe it's the drive in the player and how much they're willing to work to get better.
All right, man. I want to thank you for coming on Nickavelli TV. To all my viewers, y'all know what it is. Let's show some respect to the OGs. My man broke down players and colleges where they came from, man. God damn. This is a Knicks fan if I ain't bumped into one yet. And with that being said, peace. We out.
Thanks. Thank you.